Okay, so I have a hypothesis. Hang on, let's start over. Alright, I have a hypothesis. Hypothesis. That okay, so you know how a magnet works. It's got like this little bar, and it's got a north and a south, and current kind of comes out of the north end and goes down to the south end, and it loops around like this. And this is a two-dimensional drawing, because if you lie a magnet on a table and you put iron filings around it that are magnetized, they'll kind of take this shape. But this will actually extend into 3D space. It's obviously not just a two-dimensional thing. So the actual shape of a magnetic field is like a donut, or as nerds call it, toroid. Toroid. This isn't that important. It's just like a essay vocabulary word for you to learn to recognize good crackpots. So magnetic fields work, in this shape, and when you have a small one, it takes the same shape, it's just smaller. And then when you stick two together, they kind of unite. Let's do this way. Okay, when you stick two together, stick two little magnets. I'll do this a third time. Wow. My schlemilometer is really off the charts today. All right. So you have these magnetic fields. They're always the same shape, whether it's a big magnet or a small magnet or whatever. And when you have, when you add one, I should really get better at drawing these. When you add one to another one, you get a bigger one. So they sort of combine really easily. So this is like, they combine into things that look the same shape. And I think the human will works the same. You have like a person, and he has sort of this like field going through him, and this is like his will. This one is like my will right here. My will. When I am being rational and deliberate and I can decide what I want to do, I can take the force of this field with me and go do it. However, I also have little errant emotions, little rogue wills that have broken off. This is like anger or whatever. And when I get mad, I kind of get sucked down into this little field and forget about everything that's contained in this one, and I only know the things that are in this one. And so I do something that is kind of weak and stupid, but I don't realize that until I forget about it and get back to my normal self. So like these little wills take us over when we let them. And so what emotional healing does, and what healing in general does, is it reintegrates these rogue wills back into the main will and makes it stronger. So when that happens, there are fewer of these rogue ones for us to get sucked into, and they don't really disappear, they're just integrated back into this one, back into the real self, and make it stronger, just kind of like when you add two magnets together. There's another reason why I think the magnetism metaphor is a good one for the will, and that is the concept of like how a few different things work. Practice, or like habits, and propaganda, sales. So these things are all kind of like, they work by repetition. When you practice something, let's say you're like learning to play piano, you like do the same scales over and over because you are teaching the will to do something kind of effortlessly and automatically. And I would compare this to magnetizing something. When you take like a piece of metal and rub a magnet on it in order to magnetize it. You go the same direction, the same way over and over, and you make the metal accustomed to the electrons moving in the same way through it. And if you start going back and forth, or you start like changing the orientation of things, it messes up the magnetism. It doesn't give it a distinct current. I think our wills work the same way. If we're practicing something, we kind of have to do it in the same direction. If we start practicing badly, well, we're just not going to have the skill. We're just going to do, all the things all over the place. Habits the same way. When we do the same thing over and over, it becomes more effortless, whether it's like getting up early in the morning or not eating sugar or working out or whatever it is. Propaganda, they repeat the same message over and over. Make sure you hear it a bunch of times. It kind of magnetizes the intellect to consider a certain thing normal or habitual or automatically, just like practice and just like habits. And then sales too, like when you're marketing something, showing people the same ad a million times, or showing people the same buy now button a million times, making sure your brand shows up in lots of very public places so it seems ubiquitous. All this stuff kind of fits decently well into the magnetism metaphor. Practice, habits, propaganda, sales, emotional healing, and wills in general. So just because of all those things that kind of fit into the metaphor, I find it useful. And I've never heard it before, so I thought I'd share it. Yeah, it's a little crackpottery, but come on, what do you follow me for? Peace.